Hi guys, welcome to Module 5. I'm going to go ahead and go through this PowerPoint and kind of explain to you what to expect in this module, and after that we'll go into some of the tools that you'll look at this week so that you're familiar with those and what you need to learn. So the first thing we're going to do in just a few minutes, we'll look at your Weebly page and set up your portfolio page so that you're ready to get started on it as soon as you complete the module. Your goal is to choose a standard and set up a presentation based on what you would have a student do to demonstrate mastery of a learning standard or standards. So that's what you're going to work on in your plan this week, and it's going to be focused on digital storytelling. So you'll have a choice of using PowerPoint, and there are two choices of the PowerPoint that you can use, or making a sway, which you may or may not have heard of. It is part of the Office 365 suite, one of the apps in there that you can use as well. Please make sure that you are focusing on getting those Bloom's taxonomy and LOTI levels up. I know that a lot of people worked on that last week, and I gave some feedback that people were curious about, so I'm going to kind of cover that in this presentation so you can understand what you're expected to do. So somebody had asked if I could show an example of what the page will look like when you're done with it this week. And this is actually two separate pages that I kind of minimized so that you can see the overall page and what it will look like this week. So you're describing your basic productivity tools, you'll define and explain, and determine your potential learning standards so that you can discuss those in your discussion as well here. You can see this person just put two pictures just to kind of beef up the page, make it look a little nicer. This one chose two different pictures, but they've just got two paragraphs describing these things such as trends and issues. I'd also like you to talk about two or more examples, but at least two examples of productivity tools. You're going to be talking about your presentation tools, so I would focus on things like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Forms, or Microsoft Excel. So we're focusing on Microsoft and the Office 365 suite because most of you know Google tools pretty well. So I'd rather you focus on those Office 365 tools because they're amazing, and a lot of schools are going to Office 365. So it's important that you understand these tools and their capabilities so that you can teach students using them. So you can see in these two spots, the way the students did this is they actually had two artifacts. It was the exact same artifact, but it was in different forms. So I'll explain to you what's going to be expected of you since this is an online course and this was still face-to-face. And then here at the bottom, they just include their lesson plan idea. So you can see that this is what the page looks like. They've got their artifacts posted here, and the user will have to click on it to see the artifacts themselves. They've got their description of basic productivity tools and examples here, and the lesson plan idea posted below this. So I'll show you how to set that up in just a moment. So looking at the Bloom's taxonomy and LOTI levels, we know that they're kind of similar. So if you've got higher level of Bloom's going on, then you've probably got a higher level of LOTI's if you're using technology properly with students. So I want you to just look at the different things we're looking for. I know it's easy to say, remember, understand, and apply. Those are the lower levels of Bloom's. But these are the things that students will be doing to get to those lower levels. Some of these verbs are a little bit easier to understand. They're measurable objectives that must be quantified. So they're very specific and concise. These verbs are very, very important when you're planning your lessons. So while you may have said something like you were evaluating student learning with the instructional tools last week, that's not the exact evaluation you're looking for. You're looking for evaluation that allows students to choose things, choose what they demonstrate. They're going to determine things, defend an argument. They're going to make judgments. They're going to compare and contrast and argue. So these are the terms that go along with evaluate. And then creation is going to allow them to actually design things and build things, invent things, and create things. So while some people said, well, they're creating a mind map, that's not exactly creation, that's more of application. They're applying their learning. So these are just some of the examples, and you can find these online that tell what students will be doing during the different Bloom's levels. So you can see that it's lower level when it says, by the end of the lesson, the student will be able to recite Newton's 3 laws of motion. Whereas at creation, or creating, By the end of this lesson, the student will be able to design an original homework problem dealing with the principles of the conservation of energy. So you should see the difference between the LOTI levels here. And when using technology, here are some examples. They might do some mind mapping for analyzing if it's done correctly, surveying, linking. Evaluating might involve grading, testing, or posting. And then creating, they can be involved in blogging, filming, or creating a film, podcasting, and that kind of thing. So when you're looking at those LOTI levels, you really have to look at whether the students have voice or choice during the activity, and with instructional software, they don't have a lot of voice and choice. Most of those decisions are made by the teacher, and they should be, because you're introducing a topic, you're not really getting to those higher levels of feelings. But the integration level, which you will reach this week, you'd like to see all lessons and activities reach this level, but they won't always. So when you get into the tools we're using today, the project is student-driven. Students have voice and choice in the activities, and they get to select the topic of study and how that they will demonstrate their learning or mastery of the standard. So the teacher's more of a facilitator in this case, not as much involved in the learning process. So what are basic productivity tools? Basic productivity tools include word processing, spreadsheets, and presentation tools. They allow students to learn through research, synthesizing information, and designing a presentation of learning to demonstrate mastery of a standard or standards. The important part is how you plan this lesson in order to get those higher learning skills. So make sure when you choose a standard for your content level, you choose a standard based on what you want students to do to demonstrate their learning. So find a standard that you're very interested in teaching, something you think that students can demonstrate using a presentation. You'll describe your learning activity, how are you going to introduce the lesson, what will students do, and that's the most important part, and how can the lesson be moved to a higher integration level. But even from the beginning of this level, if their lesson, you're looking at how to get that higher integration level. And sometimes it does take a little bit longer to get to that later lesson and get to that higher level. Okay, so you look at your Bloom's level and level of technology integration. And then for your UDL, you want to talk about how you're going to engage the students. How are you going to represent learning, and how are they going to express their learning through the PowerPoint or Sway that they'll create. So you're looking at those methods, materials, assessments, and what are their goals for learning. Finally, it's important to know what students and teachers will do, how will you introduce the project, and how can you extend and conclude the lesson and offer feedback. Those are the things that you'll address in your lesson plan idea. So, the tools you'll look at this week are Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Sway mainly. We also have something on forms that you can look at. So if you want to talk about Word, Excel, or forms and how that can be used in what you do to teach your students, that's great. But your project will most likely be a PowerPoint or a Sway for the students to create a presentation of their learning. So it's important to understand all of these tools, but just discuss two of the basics within the written text in your post. Then you're going to create a technology artifact. Use one of the presentation tools, either PowerPoint or Sway, and design an activity that can be shared on any device. So you're going to actually create the presentation through Sway or through PowerPoint. I'll explain that a little bit more in just a minute. This learning with these tools is going to be personalized because it'll be very unique to the person that is designing the presentation. It will also include communication, collaboration, and creativity, and I'll show you how to do that, and meet a variety of learning needs, including students that are English language learners. There's an option that you can use with PowerPoint in that as well. So your plan is, or here are some ideas for your digital storytelling. You can create an ebook. It will allow you to add audio if you have the desktop version of PowerPoint. If you do not, we're going to do it a different way. Digital storytelling can showcase students' understanding in a meaningful way. Like I said, it can be very personalized, and a Sway can be embedded into your portfolio page. So if you create a Sway, that's probably the best way to demonstrate your Sway. You can also use a digital ebook, and if you save that to your Dropbox, you can create your own link to put on your page, your portfolio page. Please make sure that you follow up after making your digital ebook using a screencasting tool if you do not have the desktop version of PowerPoint, if you decide to do this option. It's not exactly the same, but it will work with Office 365, and you can provide translation for students, which is kind of cool. All right, some more ideas. Ideas for visual storytelling. This is the most important part of designing this lesson. Decide what you want students to do. Are you going to have them showcase an understanding of their content in a certain way? They will have pre-populated templates that they can use if they want. You may want them to show their writing assignments using visuals and summarize their work in whatever they wrote. Remember, this is going to cause them to have to think really critically because they have to decide what's the most important part that they're going to share of their writing that they wrote. You could have them create a timeline of events or summarize a story. You could promote cultural awareness, or you can tell important stories or make local connections regarding making changes in their local community. So during this module, make sure that you learn at your own pace and just have fun. Fun makes it less work. You also need to work on troubleshooting. If you have issues with what you're putting together, sometimes it's important to go out to a video and get some help. Maybe Google something that you're struggling with. Contact one of your peers. And if none of that works, definitely contact me before you get too frustrated. Remember, you're preparing for working with students, so you have to really learn these tools on your own. Turn in your best work and ask for help when you need it. And then the most important part, a lot of people are forgetting to do, check your work in Microsoft Word Editor. So copy and paste your text into the editor and check your work before you post it to your portfolio and send it in to me. Assess yourself with the rubric, and then finally submit your URL directly to the basic productivity tools post, so it goes directly to it when I'm checking your work. And that is just an intro to the module. I want to make sure I cover some of the tools as well, so I will get right to that as well.